Turn of Honorable Murtala, Muhammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the mid-year budget as presented by the Honorable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, government is continuing. And I agree with my very good friend, Honorable Oppong Nkrumah, admonishing us to continue with some of the things he claimed they did. I don't think that if you are really a patriot and a Democrat, there's nothing wrong with even continuing with things that the previous administration did. But one thing, Mr. Speaker, he failed to acknowledge that at least we didn't continue with the corruption. We didn't. And I thought he would have commended this government for not continuing with the outright corruption that indeed affected the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, we can stand here and speak the big English. We can stand here and use all the economic jargons. That is not of interest to the man who is struggling to look for job opportunities. That is not of interest to my grandmother who sells cocoa in the village. That is not an interest to the woman who sells kelewele in Oppong Nkrumah's constituency. What is of interest to the ordinary Ghanaian is how they feel. And as a young student leader, I remember in 1996, in fact in 2000, President Kufuor, then candidate Kufuor, he said, pardon me my wobbling Twi language. At least 2 years in KNUST, I'm trying to manage. That is of interest to the people of this country. The people of this country are well aware that the city has calmed down. And my brother was being pessimist, that what you should be thinking of is sustaining it. I want to ask a simple question. And this question may be regarded as a rhetorical question. Is it that he is uncomfortable that the city has actually arrested the fugitive of a dollar? We were told in this country that the dollar was arrested, locked at the police headquarters, and the keys was actually given to the IGP. In fact, the dollar was a fugitive. It is not fluke. It is not just by accident that we have been able to reduce and in fact arrested the fugitive dollar under their watch. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, he said that we are not spending. And I was shocked, without empathy to the life that was lost. He made reference to the fact that our security agencies could not detect that there was going to be some killing. Unfortunately, and I told him, I know him, my good friend. The difference is that with all the resources you had, you couldn't realize that Ahmed Swale, a journalist in this country, was going to be murdered in the most barbarous manner that he was murdered. The security agencies couldn't do so. And in fact, he's talking about the dollar, talking about gold. And I'm asking myself, whether we just discovered gold. If you are not being pretentious, and you are telling us that the NDC is continuing with some of the so-called good works, where were you? Didn't you have the good works when you won the elections at the back of competence? That was what you told the people of this country, that you had the men, and with all these men, and with all the gold, you couldn't do what the NDC has done in less than a year. It is shocking, Mr. Speaker, that he is telling us that, oh, but for the challenges we encountered, let me remind my honorable friend, the Russia-Ukraine war is more profound and escalatory than it was. We were told that every problem we had in this country was as a result of the unfortunate incident. And he, Honorable Oppong Nkrumah, was an active participant in the mess they created because he was a minister of state. An active participant. He was not sitting on the fence. And I think that the least he could do was to tell this government, you are doing so well and we are praying. And I expect him to join me tomorrow we can have some prayer before we come into the chamber. Let's pray that the city which is doing so well, and in fact, I engage people who are engaged in importing and export, and they're telling us that they are doing so well because of the value of the city. But to say that what we should be thinking of how we sustain it, I thought that he would command us for even achieving that and be praying that it should be sustained. And I can assure him that the sustainability is something that is real. It is not a fluke. It is very clear to everybody. And Mr. Speaker, food inflation was even the most disastrous challenge facing the people of this country. Fuel prices was. And I think that if we want to have an analysis and do some and juxtapose between what they promised the people of this country and what we inherited, it is very clear, like fili, ga dochi. It is very clear that the people of this country indeed were in excruciating, unacceptable economic circumstances, occasioned by not just incompetence, but gross, crass, and unacceptable incompetence they subjected the people of this country. So when it comes to what we are achieving today, the ordinary man walking on the street, the people in my constituency in Tamale Central, and my honorable friend constituency, are not interested in those jargons. They are not interested in the most excellent grammar that we speak. They are interested in their livelihood. They are interested in the circumstances. Now, in this country, when we were introducing what's the name? The Youth Employment Program, NAPCO. We warned you. We told you that it was not sustainable. It is very clear to everybody that the reason why we had a huge unemployment rate in this country, particularly youth unemployment, was because that particular policy intervention was nothing but a policy intervention that was emotionally driven. The NYEP started under President Kufuor and the NPP. Then you had President Nanado. The least he could do was to continue with the NYEP and try to find solutions to some of the teething challenges. He never did that. He felt that he needed to have something that is completely different. So it was egoistic, and that is the reason why unemployment, which we inherited at 8.6% under your, we inherited under your watch around 17%. By the time indeed you left office, unemployment was what? NDC left it at 8.6%. You left youth unemployment at a level over 13%. Total at 14. Unemployment was huge. And he said that inflation was around 54% because of international challenges. What were they? They were Ukraine, Russia. And in fact, perhaps the death of the Queen was also one of the contributory factors, for which reason this country went through what we went through. So I just want to tell the people who are watching us that they have seen the difference. Even with the successes we have chalked, the NDC hasn't gone to town parading and telling people what we have done. We allow our work to speak by itself. We allow the interventions we have made to demonstrate, and the people of this country feel it in their pockets. If it was you people, you would have gone to town wanting everybody to hear. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by just a proverb. And that proverb, in fact, I want to conclude with this proverb. Oh, I have a lot of time, Mr. Speaker. Okay. Mr. Speaker, there is a popular proverb. And that proverb is very simple. And I expect my brother Habib to know. And apologies to those who may be taking their meals. That when you sleep with an itching anus, you wake up with smelling fingers. The reason why they are finding it extremely difficult to defend their record is because of what they have occasioned. And he, my good friend, Honorable Oppong Nkrumah, was an active participant in the mess that was created, a mess which we are still trying to clean. And in fact, what we are doing now, we have not even applied the second year. It is just the first year. And the first year is intended to clean the mess that was created. By the time we finish and we get to the second year and the third year, the people of this country will say, our good friends in MPP, bye-bye you. But let me also state, Mr. Speaker, in terms of governance, if you read the 2017 financial statement, and I urge my brother and others to go and read that financial statement, every single paragraph in that statement, they talked about corruption and how they were going to fight corruption. By the time we had the mid-year budget for 2017, they started removing the word corruption from the financial statement. By the time we had the 2020 budget statement, the word corruption was mentioned only once. Because instead of fighting corruption, they were fighting anybody who was fighting corruption. And that is the reason. Everything we do in this country, what is significant is our ability to fight corruption. And for the purposes of those who do not know, at any point in time there is a change in this government, either through the ballot or through the bullet in our history. Corruption has always been used as a justification for that changes we have experienced in this country. And therefore, corruption plays a significant role. They won the elections in 2017 at the back of corruption. And in fact, what they did were not even propaganda, outright lies. They said President Muhammad and his wife, they had hotels in Dubai, all manner of things. And their communicators went to town with it. Not a scintilla of evidence were they able to provide. But everybody in this country, if you mention the NPP, even 2-year-old child would associate it with what? Corruption. If you mention the NPP to anybody who is not even in this country, they would associate it with what? With corruption. To the extent that you have communicators of the New Patriotic Party who indeed have all gone on radio, and there are evidences that one of the reasons why they are struggling was because there was unacceptable level of corruption in the administration of the NPP. So, Mr. Speaker, I am saying that whatever good thing we do, whatever policy intervention we have had, what is significant in determining the success of that particular policy intervention is our ability to fight this monster called corruption. But the difference between the NDC and the NPP is very clear. The difference between President Mahama and President Nanado is very clear. The difference is very clear. Whereas President Mahama did everything in fighting corruption and still fighting it, as a matter of fact, unfortunately, what we have experienced under NPP is what we call, unfortunately, the Flagstaff House became a citadel for corruption. To the extent that
please, you are supposed to address the chair.
Mr. Speaker, to the extent that you have a leading member, one of the aspirants to lead your party, said that people were taking bribes to have access to His Excellency, the President. These are not my words. These are the words of one of the leading members of your party, someone who wanted to be elected as a flag bearer and possibly hoping to be elected as a president of the Republic of Ghana. He said that for you to have access to the president, you needed to pay $20,000. Isn't that worrying? Isn't that shocking? And to be very honest, Honorable Mr. Speaker, the courage of our friends across the aisle is just tremendous. No one would even expect that they would have the audacity to even make a statement. Yet, with the mess that is created, with the mess that everybody agrees in this country that they created for the people of this country, they have the audacity to even tell us that we don't know how to govern. I wish you could borrow me a scintilla of your audacity, a scintilla of your courage, because it takes a courageous person to be able to talk about the governance of this country, considering what you guys have created. It takes someone with a level of courage to be able to debate on the issue of how we have managed the cedi against the dollar. It takes someone with the courage to be able to tell us that even fertilizer, which was meant for farmers and which was written on it not for sale, you sold those fertilizers to the farmers of this country. You sold them to the farmers of this country. Now, if you are telling us it's because of the gold board, it's because of the gold board that the economy is doing well, didn't you have gold under your administration? Didn't you have gold? As a matter of fact, at a time when you had leading members of your party who were telling you that there were some ministers who were not doing well, and those ministers should be booted out, you all cowed to submission. Today, you are talking about that. And to say, Mr. Speaker, the least said about patriotism, the better. And now my brother is telling us that, you see, we are patriots, and that is why we are supporting. That is why we have never been against any of such intervention. As a matter of fact, you have staged more work out in this parliament than your total number in parliament. You have staged more work out in this parliament than the total number of your representation. Patriotic citizens do not walk
Honourable
out.
member, conclude.
They argue with reason. Patriotic citizens do not just hold press conferences. In fact, I am told that your other name is press conferences. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very clear that the NDC under President Mahama and the Minister for Finance and his able deputy have showed our friends.
Time is up. I will then